We're so unmistakably back in this thing. We're so glad to have y'all here. Welcome into the Hard Count. It is August 20th, 2024, the last one on the face of this planet. And as we always do on this show now, Tuesdays are predictions days for us, man. We got Florida State and Georgia Tech about to get after it here in just a matter of a few days. We got college football about to be played this weekend. So glad to have y'all here. Make sure you are subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel so you don't miss a minute of the coverage. If you're just finding this show during this part of the year as you're getting ready for college football season, this show is live 3 times a week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern. So make sure you're all the way dialed in, man. We're glad to have y'all here. It's going to be a massive day today. We got 2 big things we're going to tackle on today's show. Typically, we go all over the country. We do anywhere from like 4 to 8 segments. Today, we got 2 things on the agenda. You'll notice there's no docket graphic. That is on purpose. We got our top 25 ahead of week 1. And then we're going to go ahead and tackle our game prediction for Florida State and Georgia Tech about to get after it in Ireland. This is a beautiful thing. This is a beautiful thing because this part of the year, man, everybody's undefeated. You got fall camp wrapping up for most teams. I mean, for Georgia Tech and for Florida State and for SMU and for other teams alike, they've already finished up with their fall camp. God bless them. It's time to play football now. It's time to play football. So if you have not yet subscribed, would encourage you to do so. Also, you've noticed now, if you've been tuned in for the better part of this, last few weeks, we've started to shave down that question and answer format. If you still want to do the Q&A with me, follow me on the socials at JD Pickell on Twitter and on Instagram. On Fridays during the season, my Instagram page, we do just everybody who follows me there, we just have a little back and forth talking college football. It's still video format. And that's something we do, again, like early part of Friday. So the hay's in the barn for the live shows. We've got all our opinions out there. Great chance for us to hear from you. So if you want to keep this conversation rolling in real time, follow me there. That's a great way for us to keep that party going. One more plug before we get rolling here. If you have not yet gotten a subscription to on3.com and you're kind of on the fence, you're like, I don't know if I want to spend a little more money. Here's the deal now. You're probably going to find $1 at some point in time throughout this week, whether you find $1 in the budget, whether you find a literal, physical dollar in the couch cushions, whether you find $1 in your pocket because you found something in the dryer and it happens to be your day that day. You can use that dollar using code JD1 and get your first month with an On3 subscription. All right, so $1 using JD1 is all it takes for 1 month. That's all the coverage when it comes to stuff from Steve Wiltfong and Chad Simmons on the recruiting trail. If you're a Florida State fan and you're trying to keep up with everything going on with your Noles as they head over to Ireland, all the coverage from War Chant. So just make sure you're dialed into the nth degree as we jump into college football season, having the On3 subscription, again, using code JD1, $1 for the month. Great way to get that done. Full transparency, have no idea how long that deal is going to last for. I would jump on that while we can, all right? So glad to have y'all here, man. Feels like the college football season is really starting in earnest. Like I said, man, we're back. We're all the way back. We are unmistakably back this season right now with this top 25. And we're just glad to have y'all here. It is a privilege and an honor and a celebration to get to talk college football with y'all every single day, 3 times a week on this live show. And y'all are the ones that make this whole thing go. So thank you for that. We love y'all. We say that at the end of every live show. I want to tell you at the front of this thing, though. I want to make sure y'all know that we appreciate you for making this show what it is. All right? You see this, if you're watching live on YouTube, you see these words program on my shirt. That's part of what we do here. That's us behind the camera over here, obviously, but that's also y'all making this show what it is. Get in the comment section, subscribe, and follow on the socials, telling us what you want to see. Y'all are the program as much as we're the program over here on this side. So if you're listening on podcast, shout out to y'all. Quick plug, if you are a podcast person, Apple and Spotify, you type in the Hard Count with JD Pickell. Y'all have been crushing it on those platforms. So if you haven't yet gotten the subscription over there, we appreciate you for that. All right. So let's get to it, man. Our final top 25 rankings before the college football season kicks off this upcoming weekend. Need to make this note at the top of these rankings. These are current rankings. These are not projections. These are not predictions for where these teams will finish. This is just us taking inventory, taking a temperature of how we see these teams sitting right now in August before any games are played. This is not a predicted order of finish, okay? Just so we're all on the same page here. At number 25, Got the Iowa Hawkeyes. And Iowa, man, it's like Groundhog Day, isn't it? Every year, it feels like it's sort of the same makeup, sort of the same structure with Kirk Ferentz and company. Like the defense, surprise, surprise, y'all, they're going to be really good again. They are. They are. I mean, that's just kind of the matter of fact. They bring back 70% production from last year's squad that won 10 ball games. And the offense was pretty abysmal last year. Now, the reason why I have Iowa at 25 and not a little bit higher, there's been rumblings and reports around what the offense hasn't done during fall camp. Okay, I am not yet sold on Cade McNamara as the answer there offensively for them. And I don't think it's all on Cade McNamara. You brought in the new OC, Tim Lester. I don't think it's really a Tim Lester issue this year. Now, they could be better than they were offensively last season, but my issue with them is I think it's a personnel thing. Like at the skill positions, I don't know where you're going to manufacture like real potent offensive output. They only took 4 transfers. They probably needed to take a few more at the skill players, in my humble opinion. So we'll see what they do this upcoming season, but still, that's not me being down on Iowa by any stretch of the imagination. Iowa, I still believe, as good as they're going to be defensively and as well coached as they are and as disciplined as they are, if they can be a little bit better on offense, maybe they surprise some folks. But we got Iowa at number 25 for us in our, I guess preseason is the right word, pre-week 0 rankings. Now at 24, we'll get some pushback on this. We're more than fine with that. They were in our post-spring top 25, and we're cool with them being in our preseason top 25. I got Nebraska. Nebraska at 24. They bring back 77% production from last year's squad. They're going to have better quarterback play. You say, Jody, how do you know? Like, y'all, because it can't really get too much worse. And again, we're not trying to project Nebraska. I'm just taking what we can see at face value here. Because even though they missed a bowl game last year, even though they only won 5 games, 4 of those 5 games they lost by 1 score. They had a quarterback that gave the football away at least 2 times. So what does that tell us? Nebraska is a quarterback away from being what, an 8-win football team last year? And that's being generous, saying they don't win all of those 1-score games, which who knows what they have with better quarterback play. This is now going to be a Matt Rule-coached football team. I'll rephrase that. This is going to be a football team coached by Matt Rule that is bought into the way that Matt Rule does things, if that makes sense. Like Matt Rule, we say it a lot. He's about details. He's about structure. He is about doing things the right way all the time. And when you do things the right way all the time, behind closed doors, eventually that translates to the field. Speaking of Dylan Raiola as the quarterback, you say, JD, you're overhyping him. You're over-projecting what he's going to mean to Nebraska. I'm not asking Dylan Raiola to be first-team All-Big Ten. I'm not. I'm not telling you Dylan Raiola needs to go light the Big Ten on fire and have him beat Ohio State. Like, Dylan Raiola is to Nebraska what the food is to a party. Like, how many of y'all know, man, you go to a party, the food doesn't have to be incredible for the party to be good. Like, you order Papa John's pizza, you're set. You're set. But you know now, bad food can really bring a party down a few notches. Right? Like if that food isn't up to par and it's just something kind of nasty, it's like, I don't know, maybe you got like some store-bought chicken wings, not like chicken wings that you ordered in, but like you got them from the grocery store and they're a few days old. Like, you know what I'm saying now? That can really bring things down a few notches. If Dylan Raiola is just the Papa John's pizza to Nebraska's defense that allowed 18 points a game last year, that they bring back a whole lot of dudes from, and if he can supplement the offense effectively with what they're going to do on the ground, like, he just has to play complementary football. Don't give it away. Push the ball downfield when we need you to. We're going to be in good shape. I think he's capable of doing that. I think Nebraska is going to be a top 25 team in 2024 as we sit here in August. Now at 23 now, this one just gets me fired up because we talk about how far this team has come. Look at Kansas. Kansas is in our top 25 in the preseason. They are in the coaches poll top 25. They are in the AP poll top 25. So, like, we're not out on an island now on the Jayhawks right now. Kansas is a football school. I have no problem saying that. I mean, comment section, bring it on. I think Kansas is a football school now. And it's actually an exciting brand of football. If Jalen Daniels stays healthy, they will be in the race for the Big 12 title. Just let that sink in. They bring back 3 wide receivers from a season ago that were all top 50 in America in terms of yards per reception. They got Devin Neal at running back for them, who's a 1,200-yard back. New OC now. New OC, Jeff Grimes. is going to, I believe, run a lot of wide zone kind of run schemes. The point that we've got to take away there is they're going to try and get downhill, quick, fast, and in a hurry. Allow Devin Neal to really hit the hole as soon as he catches or gets the football. Kobe Bryant is a corner for Kansas. He's one of my favorite players in college football. Just, in your face, rangy corner, plays physical at the line of scrimmage. There's a lot to like about Kansas. Lance Leipold, man, he's building something out there. I think they got a high floor this year, and again, I think they're going to factor into that Big 12 title race this upcoming season. So Kansas, football school and top 25 for us on this show, which, not to toot our own horn, but for us, that's all that matters. But if you don't believe us, believe the AP poll and the coaches poll, they got them in the top 25 as well. Now, Arizona is at 22 for us, and they're that restaurant that's under new management, like Jed Fish has gone to Washington, enter into the fold Brent Brennan. Still a great restaurant. You wouldn't really be able to guess that their head coach left based on what they still have on this roster. This is a team now that brings back 66% production from last year's squad. They had 3 losses last year. All 3 of them were by 1 score. 2 of them were in overtime. Okay, they bring back 70% production on offense that scored 34 points a game. Tetairoa McMillan, Noah Fafita, been playing together, the wide receiver quarterback combo, been playing together since the youth football days, played together in the high school football days, and now they're balling out at Arizona. This is a team now, similar to Kansas, that will be in the hunt for the Big 12 title. The Big 12 is going to be fascinating this year. Arizona will factor in some way, shape, or form. Mark my words. We'll stay in the Big 12, man. Oklahoma State. Death, taxes, Mike Gundy winning football games. They are top 5 in returning production in America from a team that was 9-3 last year and played for the Big 12 championship. They bring back Alan Bowman, who posted a hilarious tweet the other day. He's back for his 19th grade. Shouts to Alan Bowman, being able to kind of poke some fun at himself. We appreciate that. And then Ollie Gordon, who is the best running back in America, he's also back. They have a 2-game stretch here that I think will really determine their season. They host Utah, and they're at Kansas State. Those are the 2. Those are the 2 games now that if you're Oklahoma State, you circle those and you say, all right, let's roll. Roll the dice. You got to be able to be in midseason form in September because both those games are in September, and it's a 2-game stretch. They have the 3rd best odds now to win the conference. That's saying something. That should say how difficult the Big 12 is going to be this season. Mike Gundy, man, just wins football games. So Oklahoma State at 21 for us. Now at number 20, Texas A&M. And Texas A&M, I think, could be one of those teams that finishes a lot higher than 20. I love the Mike Elko hire. Full transparency. I think that was exactly what they needed. He brings structure. He brings culture. He brings toughness. I think he brings a true identity to that football team. You talk about A&M, the folks in College Station, they are so tired of this national talking point of, well, they're really talented. Well, they got all these players they recruited. Well, they got X, Y, and Z guy on the roster. They know that. They already know that. That's not the issue. The issue has been, can we put it together? To take it a step further, do we have somebody in charge that can help us put all these pieces together? With Mike Elko coming over from Duke, doing more with less at Duke, I think you have your guy. Very clearly now. It is not a rebuild. It is a reboot. It is a reboot in the way they do things. New offensive coordinator Colin Klein coming over from Kansas State. I really like this fit for them. We'll see exactly how it looks schematically because I think what they do at A&M and what it looked like at Kansas State will be different. But I'll just say this. They're going to get the football to their best players. And last year, Evan Stewart, who's now at Oregon, I think was one of your best players. I think that's pretty straightforward. Was he healthy the entirety of the season? No, so that factors in here. But Evan Stewart had 1 game with double-digit receptions. 1 game. And again, I know he wasn't healthy all the season. I understand there were different things at play there. But just to make sure we're on the same page, that should not happen. And with Colin Klein now running the offense, that will not happen in 2024. Defensively, they're going to be tough. They bring back 67% production from last year's unit that only allowed 23 points a game. What you believe about Texas A&M and what they're going to accomplish in 2024 is directly tied to what you believe about Connor Wegman. Now, I think Connor Wegman's going to be pretty freaking good. So take that as you will. But overall, structurally, identity-wise, A&M will be better set up for success in 2024. All right. Now, at 19, USC could be that team that finishes a lot higher. I said that about A&M. I feel the exact same way about USC. We have them at 19 right now because we're still kind of in wait-and-see mode about the defense, but there's this narrative about Lincoln Riley out there that he's not a good football coach or he's not this or he's not that. And I'm like, man, like, I don't know. I don't know exactly where we're grabbing that from. I get there's a lot of recency bias baked in there. I know the defense hasn't looked how it's, supposed to match the offense. But, I mean, outside of the COVID year and outside of last year, Lincoln Riley's won double-digit football games every year he's been a head coach. Again, the COVID year and last year are the only exceptions. That's a pretty solid track record. They announced yesterday Miller Moss is going to be their starting quarterback. Here's what I would say about him. Is he Caleb Williams in terms of athletic gifts and being able to make those freakish throws where he's running left and throwing right and contorting his body in certain ways? Like, no. I would also say there's only one Caleb Williams in the world, and he's now playing quarterback for the Chicago Bears. What I would say, though, is Miller Moss, I think, will actually run the Lincoln Riley offense. And that's not to knock Caleb Williams. I think last year, whether it was a Caleb Williams thing, whether it was an offensive line thing, whether it was a skill player thing, like however you want to slice it, Caleb Williams, a lot of the time, was ad-libbing outside of Lincoln Riley's system. And that's fine because a lot of the times it worked during his Heisman year, but last year they got away from that, and I think you saw some games where it hurt them a little bit. Miller Moss is going to run the Lincoln Riley offense. And I think we can give the benefit of the doubt to Lincoln Riley that if he has a quarterback, he's going to be pretty good. Like, I don't know if Miller Moss is Kyler Murray or if he's Caleb Williams or Baker Mayfield, but I'm just saying, like, I think Miller Moss playing in Lincoln Riley's system, we can be a little bit generous with our opinion and say, yeah, I think they're going to be serviceable offensively at the very least. A little bit tongue-in-cheek there. Now, defensively, I said this. Let's wait and see a little bit. You're bringing a new staff with Danton Lynn and company. I love what they brought in from a defensive staff outside of the DC with Eric Henderson on the defensive line. Here's what I would say about USC. I don't think the personnel last year is as bad as the numbers indicate. What I mean by that is I think there's still some players on this roster that maybe are more talented than what last year's defense would imply. Because I looked at like how USC played defense last year, and there were games, and we've said this before, where just straight up it didn't look like they were even in position to make plays. Like there were players they were playing against that were, quite frankly, a lesser caliber. Arizona State comes to mind where, yes, Kenny Dillingham's scheming it up, but we just got guys out of position. And so when I look at that happening, I'm like, okay, that's a scheme thing. That's not a player thing so much. That's a scheme thing. And so if you improve the scheme and now have a chance, I think, to have your talent maybe show itself a little bit more than it did last year, I think good things could happen for USC. So USC at number 19 for us in our preseason top 25. At 18, we have what I would call the vanilla ice cream of college football. Steady, you know what you're going to get, and that's Kansas State. And Chris Klieman has never won less than 8 games outside of the COVID year. They bring back 80% production on defense. That allowed 23 points a game last year. Now here's the sauce, the sprinkles, the whipped cream that you add to that vanilla ice cream. You got Avery Johnson now playing quarterback for you. And this is not to knock Will Howard because I think he's going to be phenomenal at Ohio State. But Avery Johnson now playing quarterback brings a little bit more of that juice for you. I mean, when he tucks it and runs, like there's a little bit more of that home run threat with him playing quarterback now. And then next to him in the backfield, like, I mean, you could not draw up a better fit for Kansas State. You bring over Dylan Edwards from Colorado, who's a threat out of the backfield catching the football. I mean, he's obviously great running the football. I mean, if you're a Kansas State fan, think Deuce Vaughn, think Darren Sproles, like he fits that mold to a T of previous great Kansas State running backs. And then, oh, by the way, like DJ Giddens is still there. He's a 1,200-yard back. Here's the real X factor for Kansas State this year, and someone that I think is going to make a name for himself in the Big 12 and potentially nationally, depending on how much they throw the football. Jace Brown, last year for Kansas State, averaged 16 yards of reception. All right, keep an eye on him. I think he's going to be a big play for Avery Johnson in this offense. So Kansas State, one of those teams now. We keep talking about the Big 12 and teams that could win it and teams that could factor in. Kansas State is probably up there with the Oklahoma States and the Utahs in terms of being teams that will contend for that conference title. Now, a team that is moving from the Big 12 to the SEC is at 17 for us, and that's Oklahoma. And Oklahoma fans, we've had our differences here over the course of the last few weeks to a month, and that's okay. Like, we can disagree and hold different opinions on your Sooners, and if we're wrong, we'll talk about it, and we'll admit we're wrong, and if we're right, we'll talk about it too. But Oklahoma, I think at 17, like, really good foundation. I think when you hired Brent Venables, you hired him for the long haul. It's the reason why you gave him the extension. You saw good return on investment. You're like, we got our guy. Let's lock him up. Let's let him build. Brent Venables has recruited at a high level. I think culturally he fits what you want to be at Oklahoma, which is tough, physical, gritty, play good defense. Those are all things he embodies. Those are all things that you've seen from your football team to this point. Defensively, I love the production you bring back. I mean, they bring back right around 70%. That's phenomenal. But as much as I love the production, I love the leadership they bring back. I love the experience they bring back. They are all juniors and seniors projected in that starting defense. PJ Adebawari is a sophomore. We'll see if he ends up starting or not. Probably in that 2 deep. Peyton Bowen, same deal. Super sophomore. I say super in the sense that he's really talented. He's probably going to factor into that rotation as well at safety. But like, they got a lot of dudes that have played a lot of football for them. That's going to matter in the SEC. Now, offensively, we'll get to the quarterback position and the offensive line in a second. But I think they have two position groups that are wildly underrated nationally. That's the running back room with Javonte Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk, and the wide receiver room. Deion Burks, Nick Anderson, Angelo Anthony, Jaleel Farouk. Like, those are all dudes now that I think real deal deserve the attention of your defense. And if you don't give them the adequate attention, they're going to score a lot of points. So they're saying, okay, well, why don't you have them a little bit higher, JD? The reason why I don't have Oklahoma higher is because you're breaking in a new quarterback and a new offensive line. I'm not telling you it can't work. I'm just telling you I'm holding the opinion loosely of both of those factors in your football team. Now, Joel Klatt said something on his show that I think was actually really intriguing. He said, I think Jackson Arnold is a better fit for this offense than Dylan Gabriel was. Didn't say he's a better player. Didn't say he's going to make them win more games. He just said he thinks he's a better fit from a skill set perspective for what Oklahoma wants to do offensively. Like, Dylan Gabriel was a little bit more point guard, a little bit more distribute the football, get it out, which is going to work perfect at Oregon. And Jackson Arnold is a little more, let's push the ball downfield. You saw that in the bowl game against Arizona. You saw the arm talent, all those things. And so I think that could be a factor for them this upcoming season. So I'm not down on Oklahoma, the team. What I am down on Oklahoma is the schedule. Like, they have Tennessee, at Auburn, Texas, at Ole Miss, at Missouri, Alabama, and at LSU. That is brutal. That's brutal regardless of what you have on the roster. I don't care who you are. But then to break in a new offensive line and a new quarterback, that's going to be difficult. But as we sit here in August, I think they're a top 20 team, and I wouldn't be surprised if they proved me wrong and did more than what I'm talking about them doing in 2024. But right now, have them at 17, and we'll see what they go in 2024. At 16, you got Clemson. Now, Clemson is still a very good football team. Like, the public opinion of Clemson has shifted a bit over the course of the past couple of years. And the reason for that being is they are a victim of two things. One, the expectations that they have invited upon themselves because they made like 6 college football playoff berths in a row. So that's one part of this. The other thing that is, I think, impacting the opinion on Clemson is the way that they treat the portal. Like, that just causes friction with our opinion on Clemson because we're always thinking, well, like, could the grass be greener? Could Clemson have beaten Florida State last year if they were the team with Keon Coleman? Could Clemson have been the team to start the season out a little bit hotter had they gotten some more skilled players around Cade Klubnik? I mean, it's woulda, shoulda, coulda. But again, you understand, like, the potential of what they could have done if they went to the portal is something that is impacting our opinion of Clemson. But even with that being said, this defense, y'all, should be very Clemson-ish. Like, they got Barrett Carter, who just personally is one of my favorite defensive players in college football. He is all over the place at linebacker. Number 0 is must-see TV whenever you turn on Clemson football. Peter Woods, I mean, he is a freak show as a true sophomore for them in the middle of that defense on the defensive line. He's a stud. The question I have for Clemson is it actually Garrett Riley's offense in 2024? Because last year, I mean, the OC was Garrett Riley, but Garrett Riley was operating under the old Clemson way of doing things, operating under Dabo Swinney's offense. Garrett Riley is able to, I believe, bring exactly to the table what Clemson needs. Manufacture explosives, scheme guys open. use pre-snap movement to be able to run the ball effectively. Like all those things I think is exactly what Clemson needs. Will they allow him to do that? Will they allow him to help Cade Klubnik in that way? And then also, can the young pass catchers, whether it be a Bryant Wesco or a TJ Moore, step up in 2024 to help an Antonio Williams and a Tyler Brown? If they can have all those things fall into place, like Clemson could be right back in the mix for the ACC championship. But right now, we'll put Clemson at 16. Now, here we go. Let's jump into the top 15 right now. We got Tennessee at 15. You say, but JD, no projections. You're obviously assuming quite a bit about Nico with that projection at 15, right? No, actually, in this projection, or in this ranking rather, I'm assuming that Nico Iamaleava is, let's call it a 7.5 to 8 out of 10 of what he could be in 2024. So we're being a little bit conservative with our opinion of the new starting quarterback at Tennessee. The reason why I think they're a top 15 team is I love this roster. I love this roster. The defense should be as good as it has been under Josh Heupel. The secondary, you have some questions, but up front, man, like that defensive line, they feel like they're 13 deep. To be 13 deep in the SEC, that's the price of admission on the defensive line. James Pierce, that name speaks for itself at this point. Like he's going to be a top 15 pick, and that's going to make also the back end's job a lot easier when it comes to defending the pass. So love the defense. Also, the true quantity they have now at the pass catchers, whether it be the tight end position or whether it be what they have out wide with Chris Brazzell, the transfer from Tulane, Dante Thornton, transferred in from Oregon a season ago. They think he's really turned the corner. Squirrel White led Tennessee in receiving a year ago. Like there's a lot more weaponry for Nico Iamaleava, something Joe Milton didn't have last year. Also, Brew McCoy getting back healthy. That's massive. So you take all that, and then you factor in the reality that Nico Iamaleava, say what you want about him as a quarterback and how he projects this upcoming season, he's going to add a more mobile factor to what Tennessee does offensively. That's going to matter. Whether it's him ad-libbing, whether it's designed quarterback runs, he brings more to the table and more to the menu as a play caller than what Joe Milton did. I'm not down on Joe Milton. We're just kind of calling it how we see it right now. I think Nico Iamaleava, even if he doesn't become the number one recruit that he was billed at out of high school in his first season as the guy in Knoxville, I think Tennessee's still a top 15 team. Now at 14, this is one we were very vocal about when the AP poll and the coaches poll came out. Like, I think they absolutely whiffed on Miami. Like, they got Miami outside the top 15. We got Miami at 14. And the reason why I think Miami right now is a top 15 roster in college football, the question I have for them is kind of the same question we have every single year with teams that take a lot of transfer guys. My metaphor for this is always, it's like an IKEA chair. Like, Miami's got a lot of good pieces. I love them getting Sam Brown. I love them getting Damian Martinez, the running back from Oregon State, who's like a 2,000-yard back in his 2 years playing college football in Corvallis. I love what they did on the defensive side of the football, grabbing Simeon Barrow. And I love the way they're built from a roster perspective. I love all the pieces. But with an IKEA chair now, you know, like there's a lot of pieces there. How long does it take to put it together? Because you look at that chair and you're like, okay, that'll take me about an hour. An hour passes. That'll take me about a day, 2 days, 3 days. Before you know it, it's been like 3 weeks and the chair still hasn't been put together. I don't think that's Miami in 2024 in terms of how long it takes to piece together. A big reason why, I think Cam Ward is going to make this all work. Transfer quarterback from Washington State, lit it up in the Pac-12. Rest in peace to the Pac-12. It's not just what he brings from a skill set perspective to operate Shannon Dawson's offense, because he has all that in spades. He's accurate with the football, does a great job pushing it downfield. I love his mobility. To me, it's like all the things you hear about him behind closed doors in Coral Gables. The alpha personality, the leadership, the confidence, all those things I think is what you need at quarterback to bring a roster together. Big reason why I'm very, very high on the Canes in 2024. Again, we have them at 14 in our preseason top 25. Now at 13, I got LSU. And this is the one team now where, hand up, we're bending our rule just a little bit. Just a little bit on how we put this list together. Because I told you now, it's not a projection, it's a current ranking. We're not trying to look too deeply into the future. We're giving a little bit of a projection here to LSU with them being at 13. Will the offense reset, losing a Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback and 2 first-round picks at receiver? Yeah, probably. Probably. However, do we still like the pieces a lot with Will Campbell on the offensive line, leading one of the best offensive line units in America? Do we still like the pieces at receiver with C.J. Daniels, who's a 1,000-yard receiver from Liberty, Kyron Lacey, who I think is about to blow up this year at receiver for LSU, waited his turn for a long time, Garrett Nussmeier, the way that he's just built competitively and the way that he's had his time now behind closed doors to learn this system and wait his turn, like, I think that's going to factor in a big way. So we like all the pieces, absolutely. Now, the other question becomes, do we think the defense stays as bad as it was a year ago, where they're like 100 and something in total defense? Have a hard time believing that. I have a hard time getting behind that. You changed out the staff. You got Blake Baker as your DC. You got Bo Davis on the defensive line, Corey Raymond in the secondary. Like, all those pieces to me, will it be exactly what you want it to be from the jump defensively? Like, will it be back to the LSU days of old? That feels like a little bit of a stretch, but will it be better? I think so. Especially when you got Harold Perkins playing linebacker for you. You're going to have a chance. So overall now, we'll see how it comes together, but third-year Brian Kelly has to be accounted for when you talk about LSU this year. And third-year Brian Kelly is something we've talked about a lot on this show if you've tuned in for any length of time, and that is like when Brian Kelly has a chance to get his culture installed, get his way of doing things installed, usually that team does well. Cincinnati, their third year under Brian Kelly, made a BCS Bowl. Notre Dame, third year under Brian Kelly, made the national title game. Not a perfect science, but it's a trend. We're going to trust it. We have LSU at 13. Now, we have Penn State at number 12. And we might get some pushback there with Penn State not being in our top 10. That's okay. I think Penn State's an extremely high-floor team, even with two new coordinators. Tom Allen's the new DC over there. You brought in Andy Koltanecki to be the new OC over there. They are top 25 in returning production. 66% production returns on defense, including Abdul Carter. That allowed 14 points a game. Now, Abdul Carter, it looks like, is going to play a little bit more edge defender than he did a season ago. To put it simply, they're going to let him rush the passer more. That's a good thing for Penn State fans. I think the talking point around Penn State is a little bit misconstrued nationally, because you hear people say this, well, can Drew Aller get it together? Can Drew Aller be the difference for Penn State? I don't think that's the way we should look at this. I think Drew Aller is really talented. I think he's going to be better in 2024 just because he got more time to play college football last year, got his feet wet last year. Like, I don't have a ton of reservations about Drew Aller, honestly. My reservations are, is there anybody in that wide receiver room that can stretch the field? Because I think offensively, you're going to ask more of that group with Andy Koltanecki now running the show. I don't know who's catching the football for them. Julian Fleming is the guy I think you put most of your hopes on. There's other guys in that room that could absolutely step up, and that's the hope if you're a Penn State fan. I'm not down on Penn State. I think Penn State's going to be really good. How good, though, relative to your expectations is really the question. Because Penn State, man, like, they've done the 10-2 thing. They've done the 10-2 thing, and then they lose a game to one of the big players in the Big Ten, and, like, they're not here for that. Like, that's fine, and they'll, take a top 15 ranking, but, like, they're trying to push the envelope, be a college football playoff team. The other thing I would say now for Penn State, this was the year, even before we expanded the playoff, that you circled as, okay, that's the year. Aller in his second year, that core recruiting class he was a part of now, they all cycle up. They got some experience. Like, this is the year we make a run. We'll see if that's the case. I love the schedule. I mean, the only game that you really circle if you're a Penn State fan is the game against Ohio State. That's the only one where you're like, okay, how do we match up roster-wise? Like, every other game, you're like, yeah, we probably, from a talent perspective, should win that football game. This is the year if you're Penn State where you make a run. But right now we got them at 12. Still wait and see on how explosive the offense is going to be. At number 11, I got Missouri. I love the roster. Even more, though, I like their edge a lot. Like, they lost their DC. They lost Cody Schrader, who's one of the best backs in college football a season ago. They lost some production on defense. All of that is true. But, like, with Brady Cook playing quarterback for them, man, something just tells me, like, he doesn't care about anything in the best way possible. Like, I think you could say whatever you want about Brady Cook. It would go in one ear and out the other, and, like, he would just be the same guy. That competitive stamina, that competitive excellence, I think is what makes Missouri very dangerous this year. Luther Burden is the best receiver in college football. I don't want to hear anybody else's name in that conversation. Like, he is different. And Eli Drinkwitz, what I just said about Brady Cook, just kind of like having the, like, we're going to let it rip kind of vibe to him. That's exactly him as well. Like, I think he is one of the swaggiest coaches in college football, and his team embodies that. Like, they don't care what you're saying preseason. They don't care where I have them in the top 25 right now. They're going to go out there, and they're going to play their brand of football, make no apologies about it, and see what happens at the end of those 4 quarters. It's very cliche, but to put a finer point to it, the offense will, I think, still be electric. I think it'll be a little bit more of an ask from Brady Cook this year with no Cody Schrader. Probably ask some more of him in that run game and pass game. But all in all, man, Missouri, favorable schedule. They're going to be a force. We have them at number 11 in our preseason top 25. Now let's get into this top 10 here. We've done 25 through 11. Let's get to the top 10. At number 10, I got Notre Dame. And Notre Dame, man, they're kind of like that frozen pizza right around midnight. Like, the more I look at them, the more I like them. Like, the more I'm like, golly, yeah, I could go for some of that right now. This is not the old school Notre Dame offense that we've been accustomed to. This is not going to be, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Like, this is not going to be under center a whole heck of a lot. Like, it's going to be, let's spread it out. Yes, we're going to run the football, but like we want to get you out on the perimeter. We want to get the ball to playmakers downfield. We want our quarterback to be a dual threat and rip it downfield. Like, this is going to be an exciting brand of offense under Mike Denbrock. Obviously, you bring in Riley Leonard to run this offense. Jeremiah Love is a running back for Notre Dame. He is a name to know. He is going to, I believe, introduce himself to all of college football on a national level in that game against Texas A&M. They're going to find ways to get him the football. Whether it's in the pass game, whether it's in the run game, get the ball to Jeremiah Love in space, and good things will happen. Okay, he is a name to know. Again, I think he's going to have a massive year in South Bend, especially in this new scheme with Mike Denbrock running the show and making it a thing where they get the football to playmakers in space. He's one of their key playmakers. Get him the ball in space. They also went to the portal and added some guys with some real deal speed on the outside. You bring back Jaden Greathouse as well from a season ago, who's a true freshman last year, had a really solid campaign. The offense, I think, is in good position. Your question is, can Riley Leonard be consistent enough downfield to get you to where you want to go? That's my question, at least. I love what he does running the football. I think it's a good sign he was voted a captain. Defensively, I love the experience from them. Like, 8 of their 11 projected starters are seniors. I love what they have on the back end. They probably have the best secondary outside of Ohio State in all of college football. Ben Morrison, Xavier Watts. They have a very workable schedule. Like, if they go 2-1 against A&M, Florida State, and USC, they're in the college football playoff, for my money at least. So Notre Dame, I think as we sit here right now, 10 is about the right spot for them. Now at number 9, this is one of the teams that really was a big riser for us when it comes to our post-spring rankings, to our pre-week 0 rankings. I got Florida State at 9. And the best way to describe this as to why I have them at 9 and why I had them outside the top 10, I believe, preseason, or post-spring rather, I trust Mike Norvell. And everything you hear over at War Chant and everything you hear about this Florida State team is it as settled as last year, where you have the number 1 returning production all of college football. You got a guy at quarterback in Jordan Travis who's been there for a minute. Like, no, it's not as settled, but I do think it's every bit as talented. They feel the exact same way internally at Florida State. It will look different. It will look different, especially on offense. Last year, Florida State was 50-50 run to pass, like a perfect ratio, okay? That's not going to be the case this year. This year, it is going to be run the football, let those big offensive linemen up front make it happen for you. Let that stable of backs led by Roydell Williams eat and eat greedy. And then when you want to cheat, you want to add somebody else in to try and stop the run. DJU, take money on the table. Right? Cash in when they try and cheat, put their hand in the cookie jar, make them pay. Also, I'll say this. I think DJU and his legs could factor in as well when it comes to Florida State and how they stack up in 2024, especially in like red zone, short yardage, all those things. So little something allowed in there. The thing you'll hear about Florida State is, well, they're 83rd in the country in returning production. And people will be very quickly to point to all the players they lost from last year. That's not untrue. But I do think it's an incomplete thought when you point to all the guys they portaled in last year and had success with and say, well, they're not going to have success in 2024. Look at all the transfers they lost from last year. From a Keon Coleman to a Braden Fisk, all those guys. The thing I would say is, well, didn't Mike Norvell go to the portal again and get more guys? Like, I think at some point in time, the technique from Mike Norvell and how he builds his roster, you have to just grade it on a different curve. You have to use a different lens when you assess Florida State's roster and how they use the portal. Because for a lot of teams, when they go to the portal, it's like, we'll see how this works. But for teams like Florida State, it's like, okay, we can trust their evals, trust their staff, and trust their plan with some of these transfers to be able to maximize their ability. Like Malik Benson, transferring in from Alabama. Is he going to be Keon Coleman? I don't know, but I think he's going to be good enough to get the job done for you at wide receiver 1. DJU, does he have the best track record of all time as a quarterback in college football? No, it's kind of been up and down for him, but is he good enough in Mike Norvell's offense this year? I 100% believe he is. Love the D-line. I love the O-line. Like, all that's to say, I think Florida State will look different. Yes, there's some unprovenness to them, but I think right now they're a top 10 team in college football in 2024. Now, at number 8, I got Utah, man. And now Utah to me is like the Toyota RAV4 of college football. Like, it's not the flashiest brand. It's not a Tesla. It's not a Georgia, an Alabama, or a Texas. It's not a Ferrari. But what it is dependable, tough, consistent, steady. That is Utah football under Kyle Whittingham. And the fact that the AP had them outside the top 10, I think is egregious. I think they will eat their words. They got Cam Rising coming back in quarterback. I've said it before. I think some of the best flow in college football, period. Hope his knee is healthy. I think it is. All he does as a starting quarterback is win conference titles. Like, that's all he does. They also bring back 70% production from last year's defense that allowed 20 points a game. I said Cam Rising's back. He also brings back his favorite target in Keithy, who also missed most of last season, if not all of last season, actually. They have had double-digit wins 3 of the last 4 years, not counting COVID. 3 of the last 4 seasons, rather. Doubt Utah if you want to. Say what you want about Utah and Kyle Whittingham and Cam. Like, I'm just telling you, they're going to be a team that I think wins the Big 12 and gets to bye the first round of the college football playoff because of that, obviously. So, Utah being overlooked right now. Maybe it's a brand thing. Maybe it's a logo thing. I don't know, but I think they're one of the best teams in college football. We have them at number 8 in our preseason rankings. At number 7, this is the team that, like, I'm not so sure isn't going to be the one that makes us all feel a little bit dumb after the season. That's Michigan. I have Michigan at 7 because, like, I don't think that much has really changed with them. And it's funny to say that because you lost your head coach, you lost your quarterback, you lost, a bunch of dudes to the NFL. They are 128th in returning production in all of college football. Y'all there is 134 teams. So they are darn near the bottom. I think just because the names are different, the machine that Michigan is does not change. And the big question around Michigan for a lot of folks, while they probably say, okay, well, yeah, you lost guys on defense and on offense, but overall, like, there's a lot of trust in Wink Martindale and what they have on defense and some of those guys that did come back on the defensive line, Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham. Will Johnson is probably the best cornerback in college football. Like, there's some trust on that side of the football. And I even think there's some confidence on the offensive side of the football. They're going to be able to run the football. Like, I don't think there's a big question mark on, will Michigan still have that physical brand of how they approach things offensively? I don't think that's the question. I think the question everyone has for them is, what do they have at quarterback? I would flip that question on its head. What do you need at quarterback? Looking strictly at the numbers, I understand J.J. McCarthy was sitting a lot of the second half for some of these games, but like he averaged, Michigan as a team averaged rather, 213 yards a game passing, 8.9 yards a pass. That's a big one. What J.J. McCarthy brought to the table, I believe, outside of leadership and all the intangibles, was his efficiency. Like, he was 74% completion percentage a season ago. He kept you on schedule. And so maybe Alex Orji or Davis Warren isn't doing that for you, but still, are they 60% plus? If it's Alex Orji playing quarterback for you, what else does he bring for you on the ground? Like, I'm not so sure that we're assessing Michigan's quarterback position all the way correctly. Because I think for Michigan, all you need really is a change-up pitch. Like, that was what J.J. McCarthy was. If you wanted to stack the box, he would make you pay. If you got home on a blitz, he could ad-lib, make something happen downfield. That was what he did. You lost Blake Corum. That's massive. I don't want to overlook that. I think Donovan Edwards is primed for a year like this. But again, I'm not so sure that Michigan isn't one of those teams that we're overlooking in a very, very drastic way. So Michigan for us at number 7. And again, they're one of those teams we could look back on and say, golly, how do we miss the Wolverines? At number 6, I got Alabama. Now, Alabama has a lot of newness, similar to Michigan. Now, new does not equal bad. Some places new equals bad. It does not equal bad at Alabama. New head coach, Kalen DeBoer, 104-12 as a head coach. Honestly, y'all, it'd be more surprising if he didn't have success in Tuscaloosa, given his track record. But JD, it's the SEC. I understand that. I have some questions as well. But trusting the trend, trusting the numbers, Kalen DeBoer is a winner. He's figured something out about college football that translates from place to place, whether it's NAIA or whether it's at Washington. Like, he's figured something out, so give him some credit there. New offense. Say what you want about the actual play caller. This is Kalen DeBoer's offense, all right? To put it simply, I think Kalen DeBoer is well-versed in 2 things. One is messing with the defense pre-snap, getting the looks he wants to have an explosive play. The other part of that is maximizing his players, maximizing his ability in-house, like playing to their strengths. Kalen DeBoer is not going to try and fit a round peg in a square hole. Like, he's going to play to Jalen Milroe's skill set as the quarterback at Alabama. You're already hearing that if you have a membership at Bama Online. So with Jalen Milroe at quarterback, the simplest way I could put it, with how I think it's going to look, they're going to create more space for Jalen Milroe to be special. When you have a talent like that, with what he does running the football, and I think what he's going to be throwing the football for you, you don't want to put too many restrictions on him. You want to let him cook. I think Kalen DeBoer will do that. So that's the new part from a head coach perspective and from an offensive perspective. I have no reservations there when it comes to what they're going to be in 2024. Just full transparency. Now, defensively, here's the question. Up front, they feel good about what they have in that front 7. The secondary, though, a lot of youth, a lot of young bucks. 2 things to give you encouragement if you're an Alabama fan. 1, there is still a lot of talent in that youth. Still a lot of dudes with 4 and 5 stars next to their name. That's one part of it. The other part of it, Kane Womack defensively is going to have a scheme that I think will cater more to instincts than it does like complexity of the scheme. Like, he's going to let these dudes know their assignment. I mean, obviously you have to be assignment sound. That's one part of this. But like, he's going to let them go play football. Okay? Similar to what I said about Jalen Milroe is I think what's going to be true of this secondary, they're going to let him go play. Like, you're not having to think too much and check with me and all those things. Like, it's going to be a lot of go play football. We'll coach it up on the back end. There's going to be growing pains, but I think that in itself should give you some confidence if you're an Alabama fan. Let's get into this top 5 here. Number 5, I got Ole Miss. And it feels like for Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, man, preparation is meeting opportunity for them. Like, talk about what they have on this roster already from an opportunity perspective. Jackson Dart's back for a 3rd year. Okay, you got Trey Harris back for another season. One of the best receivers in the SEC a season ago. You got back your DC. You got back your OC. They're still intact in Oxford. And then the opportunity of what they have from the portal with the Juice Wells adding into that offense, adding in a Walter Nolan, a Princely Umanmielen on defense. People keep talking about Ole Miss being different, physically and them looking different off the bus, and that's all like a nice thing to say. What does it actually look like, though, like from a numbers perspective for Ole Miss? For context, they're 2 deep on the interior of the defensive line. Averages now 309 pounds. Translation, they will have run stoppers. Okay? Offensively, across the O-line, they average 330 pounds. We keep saying, hey, the SEC, it's a line of scrimmage league. Ole Miss, they keep upping the ante on the line of scrimmage. Schedule, pretty workable. No Bama, no Texas, no Tennessee. You get Georgia at home. Ole Miss, man, preparation meets opportunity. I think they're a playoff team. I think they'll be in the SEC championship. And I think they're going to be a force here in 2024 because of all the reasons I just mentioned. They built to a year like this. Lane Kiffin has gone all in via the portal yet again. And Jackson Dart is primed for a 3rd huge year in the system. Now, here's our top 4. And this is what I'll say here. You could fight me on 3 and 4 and 2 and 1 being swapped, and I wouldn't have a ton of pushback for you. But I think this is the correct 4. At number 4, I got Oregon. And if this were a projection or a prediction, I'd probably put Oregon a bit higher. As we sit here right now, I don't see a weakness on this football team. All right, like success for them, I think, will hinge on Dillon Gabriel's ability to be able to get up to speed within this offense. Because like this offense now, people knock Bo Nix for being a check down guy and not throwing the ball downfield all the time. Like Dillon Gabriel's skill set fits perfectly into this offense. The question we have is, can he make good, quick decisions? The track record for him at Oklahoma would suggest yes. But learning a new offense and getting up to speed to operate at the level you have to operate in this Oregon offense, it could take a second. But overall, like, I don't question if Dillon Gabriel can be the guy for you at Oregon. If you know our college football playoff predictions, this goes without saying, we think he's going to be pretty good. The question is, can he speak the language at the level 3 of the offense? Like, you know, when you take a language in high school or college, whatever it was, like when you take that first year, you know some words. Maybe the second year you're a little more conversational. By the third year, you're fluent. Is Dillon Gabriel fluent in this offense? If he is, they're going to be in the national championship game. Now, defensively, they're stacked up front. They're stacked. Like I don't believe, have any acclimation to this new conference in the Big Ten. I think they're going to be a force from the jump. Offensively, in the trenches, I think they have arguably the 2 best tackles in all college football, and a Johnny Cornelius and Josh Connolly, in terms of like a combo. So the prove-it game for them will be Ohio State when they come to town October 12th. But Oregon, as we sit here right now, I want to see how the quarterback translates. Just want to see it, but they're going to be a force, and we have them at number 4. At number 3, I have Texas. The reason why I have Texas at 3 is I trust the most crucial parts of their operation: quarterback and head coach. Quinn Ewers said, run that back, Turbo. I'm back for another go-around. Some confidence under his belt as well, having actually done what I believe he was billed as a high school recruit to this point. I mean, he beat Alabama at Alabama, brought Texas to the college football playoff, got him a Big 12 championship. The SEC is going to be a different beast, no way around it, but he's back. Also, you have Steve Sarkisian going into another year at Texas. There's real stability now at Texas. Going on year 4 now. Steve Sarkisian can sign his name on every piece of the Texas roster. He said it going into last season. I'll say it again for him right now. This is now a Steve Sarkisian football program. Okay? 4 of their 5 offensive linemen are back. Massive in the SEC. The concern around them is what they lost, right? Because you lost 3 receivers to the NFL. You lost 2 All-Americans at the defensive tackle position. I think we'll address the defensive line first. The rest of the defense, I think, around that defensive line is arguably better. Will you have 2 All-Americans up front? I mean, you know, that's a tall order. But I think what they have, again, at the linebacker position with Anthony Hill and what they have in the back end with Andrew Makuba transferring in from Clemson, like they're going to be, I think, in a lot better position to support that defensive line. And the defensive line now, too, just so we're on the same page, I don't think the defensive line is going to be bad by any stretch of the imagination. Like Alfred Collins, is he going to be Devondre Sweat? I don't know, but I think he'll be good enough to do what they need to do in the SEC. Now, going back to those playmakers, you lost 3 receivers to the NFL. Steve Sarkisian went to the portal and got some real players. All right, he didn't just go get like a G5 guy transferring up and like an FCS guy took a chance on. He went and got like dudes that fit their system and dudes that have balled at a high level. Isaiah Bond, his resume speaks for itself, what he did at Alabama. Silas Bolden, if you watched any Pac-12 football last year, when Oregon State was getting the ball to their playmaker, like it was a crucial situation, they got it to him. Okay, so the way that he factors in along with Matthew Golden from Houston, they're going to be in good shape. Jonte Cook, who's not a transfer, but a guy that was highly touted out of high school, like they're going to be in good shape. So I think that overall the competitive stamina of this team is in a better place than it's been under Steve Sarkisian, and I like Texas a lot going into year 3. Feel like I know a good amount about Texas right now, especially what they have at the quarterback and the head coaching spots. Now at number 2, and again, if you had them at number 1, more power to you. I have them at 2 right now. I got Ohio State. Best defense in America on paper. They are built to be a gritty outfit offensively. That's different than what we've seen now from Ohio State. It's not to knock Marvin Harrison Jr., not to knock Jackson Smith and Jigba and all the great wide receivers that have come through Ohio State. They still have really good receivers on this roster, but this team under Chip Kelly is going to want to pound the football. All right, that's going to be their MO. They have, I think, the best backfield in America with Trevion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. They got a quarterback in Will Howard, who I think is also going to add into that run game. Like, they are wanting to control the line of scrimmage, and I think they have the personnel and the scheme now to do that. Chip Kelly, going to be very diverse in this run game. It's not just going to be one look. It'll be some window dressing. It'll be some things to keep the defense off balance. Like, it's going to be something where you better bring your hard hat and a lunch pail when you show up for the game against Ohio State. Adding Chip Kelly, if he can maximize Will Howard, could be the hire we look back on and say, that's why they won the national championship. Like that could be the hire that changed the entire course of our conversation around Ryan Day if he translates the way that I think he could translate. So Ohio State at number 2. And at number 1, if you follow me on Instagram, I said this yesterday on my page. I said, like, Georgia is going to be very difficult for me to keep out of that top spot preseason. I have them at number 1 right now. They have the best roster in college football, I believe. I think they have the best coach in college football. And then to go with that best roster, I think they have the best quarterback in college football, in Carson Beck. Any style of play that you want to have against Georgia, any style of game, they can beat you at that style. Rock fight, low scoring, ugly, time of possession kind of game. Georgia's offensive line is as good as any in America. And their run game, I think, will be ridiculous with Trevor Etienne. Georgia can play that style. If you're able to get into a shootout with Georgia, which, I mean, more power to you because that defense is going to be stout. If you can get into a shootout, Georgia, I believe, with Carson Beck and all their weapons, can keep pace. Carson Beck, another year in the system as a starter. I think Dominique Lovett, his second year in the system, is massive at wide receiver for them. Colby Young's going to be a player for them. Dylan Bell. Like, we just keep going down the list here now. Georgia has got a lot of guys to get the football to if you get into a track meet with them. Last thing I'll say about Georgia, why I have them at number 1. I don't think anybody in America creates more internal hunger than Kirby Smart. Some of that's manufactured sometimes. Sometimes you're just trying to get a narrative into your football team to motivate them. But nobody takes that hunger and then parlays it into results the way that Kirby Smart does. We saw it in smaller pieces last season with different games where they would be a little bit down, question marks around them. The next game, they blow Ole Miss out of the water. A good Ole Miss football team, by the way. So what I want to say is with Georgia this year, you don't have to really manufacture as much hunger because they didn't win the national title last year. Like, Kirby Smart can just say, y'all want to go win a national title? You want to go win your own national title, set your own legacy? Because some of these guys were on that team that won the national title a couple years ago. Not very many of them were starters. You want to go create your own legacy, set your own tempo for how people talk about you in Georgia football history? Like, go get it done. And again, Kirby Smart, as good as anyone, if not better than anybody, when it comes to setting that tempo and getting results out of it. So that's our top 25 for you. It's here, man. It's here. College football is here. That is our preseason top 25. It will change a lot throughout the season. We will have our college football playoff rankings for you every single Sunday on this channel. So make sure you're subscribed and let us know who you missed, man, because that's our top 25. And the next time we talk about rankings, the college football season will be rolling. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing that college football is all the way back. So, Nick, if we can here, man, I want to talk about just what gets us juiced, what gets us fired up now ahead of this college football season. There's two things that stick out to me that got me juiced over the course of this weekend heading into this Tuesday show. Because I think about this stuff. Like, whenever I have a free moment at home or whenever I'm laying in bed at night and just thinking about the show, like, what gets me juiced is two things so far right now heading into week 0. Because college football being back is one big part of this. However, seeing high school football on my timeline on Twitter this past week, because high school football usually starts just a touch before college football does, that means we're back. That means that we're playing football again. And I'll say this too, for anyone that's in high school listening to this show, because I know we have a pretty solid college audience. I would imagine there's some high school audience baked into that. If you're a high school football player, soak it in, baby. Soak it in, because the odds are that some of y'all won't go play in college, and that's more than fine. But even if you do play in college, like, it does not get any more pure than what you're doing right now, playing every Friday night with some of your best friends in front of your school. Like, ask people that went out and played college football. I've heard people that talk about it that went and played NFL football. Like, high school football is the pinnacle of your football experience. Soak it in, enjoy it, savor it, cherish it, because when it's gone, it's gone. And when it's gone, you have sweet memories, and you'll be wishing you were back on those Friday nights. Second thing I would say that gets me juiced right now, a little bit less nostalgic, but still gets me juiced nonetheless. Y'all see that Fanville commercial is back? Like, that's another thing that signals to me, okay, college football is here. And Dr. Pepper does not sponsor the show, so that's the last time I'll say the company name, even though I do enjoy Dr. Pepper. They killed that commercial. Like, they did a great job baking in some Easter eggs from, like, the sign-stealing stuff to the college football playoff. Like, that got me fired up. Seeing that back on TV, I understand I'm going to see 1,000,001 Fansville commercials before the end of the college football season, so, like, bring it on. But getting that first one out of the way, kind of like the first hit of the football season, you're like, all right, I'm ready now. I'm locked in. I'm in the zone. So that's what has us juiced, but let us know what has y'all juiced in the comment section in the live chat. All right, so we're going to pick a football game right now. How about it, man? You got Florida State and Georgia Tech in Ireland. About to get after it. Florida State favored by 11.5. People see that number like, whoa, a little bit steep. I mean, Florida State returning production is 83rd in America. Is that? I understand they're playing the game in Ireland now, so it still translates, even though they play the game in Ireland. How do we feel about this game? Break it down right now. Before we do that, though, make sure you are subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. You're a Florida State fan, you're a Georgia Tech fan, you're a Nebraska fan, you're an Ohio State fan. Whatever team you root for, I promise you, it's college football. It's nothing but college football on this show. This is our first preview and prediction of the season. We will do a lot more throughout the course of this season, so make sure you're dialed in here, and we appreciate you for that. Florida State, new group, as I mentioned before, a lot of new faces, same mission. Same mission, and I've heard this talking point a few times, and I agree with it. There's an edge to this team. Because as much as a lot of those guys from last year's squad are gone, like, I think there's still a feeling now internally about what happened on Selection Sunday last year. You go undefeated, you win the ACC, and you're left out of the college football playoff. Whether it's real or not, there is some very disrespected feelings, I think, within that locker room, and they have a point to prove in 2024. Now, for Georgia Tech, they're one of those teams in the ACC that we talk about as like a killer whale in the conference. And what I mean by that is, like, they're one of those teams that they're not the Miamis, they're not the Florida States, they're not the Clemsons of the conference, but they could very well end up breaching, have a couple things break their way, and have the season they want to have, and then end up playing for the ACC. So it's week 0 that would obviously have to start in this game, but Georgia Tech now not to be truffled with, to quote Michael Scott. The matchup to watch here that will determine the football game, as it does every football game, but especially in this one, is in the trenches. Because Florida State, they want to get DJU comfortable. First time playing quarterback for Florida State, first time in a new offense. It's not a home game. Probably everyone's feeling a little bit of the travel here. They want to make sure that they allow the game to come to him. The other part of that is this is who Florida State is going to be in 2024. We've said it many times. It will not be a 50-50 style of offense for Florida State run to pass. It will be, I think, a lot closer to like 57% to 60% run for Florida State. And, why not? Like, if that's who you're going to be, lean into your strengths. Lean into your offensive line that's experienced. Lean into your stable of backs that I said a couple of shows ago was 3 deep, and someone in the comment section said, no, JD, we're 4 or 5 deep. More power to you. Give the ball to Roydell Williams. Give the ball to Keziah Holmes. Give the ball to Toa Feely. Like, let those dudes eat. That's going to be a big part of this whole approach for Florida State. We'll talk about the prize picks numbers here when those become available, but I would take a very close look at some of the more rushing yards for those guys. Georgia Tech, the concern I have for them is, can they stop the run? Because they allowed 5 yards a carry in 2023. If they allow 5 yards a carry in this game, Florida State will cover, and they will cover with ease. Okay, now Georgia Tech understands some of those things they lacked in 2023. They will have a different looking front seven. They pulled in 7 guys from the front 7 to contribute in 2024. And the spread's 11.5. So it's a double-digit spread. And on this show, whenever we break down a game like this, the spread is what it is for a reason, right? Like, you don't have to really look too hard to predict a Florida State win. So are we picking Florida State to win the football game? We'll tell you that in a second. But I think the path for Georgia Tech to win the football game is potentially one worth exploring. I think that Georgia Tech winning this game would require two things happening. One is the Georgia Tech diversity in the run game would have to hit in a big way. Okay, Jamal Haynes is a back that had right around 1,000 yards last year for Georgia Tech. In this offense, they will get downhill. Like, they will do a lot of zone run schemes. The reason why that's important, man on man, I don't think that Florida State is going to have any issue with Georgia Tech's offensive line. Like, you're not blocking them straight up. However, in the zone run game, it's a lot more about displacement than domination. Like, can I get my guy a little bit of daylight as opposed to can I get a pancake block, is your thought process as an offensive lineman. If that can hit, and they can hit maybe underneath of Patrick Payton, maybe outside of Marvin Jones, maybe underneath of Darrell Jackson, like if all those things can happen, maybe Georgia Tech gets some tempo, maybe they get some rhythm. And speaking to the diversity of the run game, the zone run scheme is one part of this, but also something we got to factor in here, which kind of goes into the other point, is like Haynes King. He's going to be a factor running the football for you. Like, if you don't think he's a problem for you running the football, like, give him some daylight. He'll take it 40 on you, no problem. His mobility is one part of this in the run game, but even more specifically, the second point I want to make here is what he could do when the play breaks down and keeping his eyes downfield. That's where things get a little bit hairy. Because, again, I think that man-to-man, Florida State's defensive line will not have issues. Like, Patrick Payton will get his. Marvin Jones will get his. They will make quick work of this offensive line. However, if you don't get home on Haynes King and he rolls out, there's a true sophomore receiver for Georgia Tech by the name of Eric Singleton Jr. He averaged 15 yards of reception last year. He is a force, okay? He will hurt you if you don't get to Haynes King and it becomes backyard football and he gets behind the coverage and then you're listening to Georgia Tech's band. Like, that could be the way that things go in Ireland. The ideal game flow for Georgia Tech to win this football game would be, they obviously, like, if they can create a turnover, more power to you. More realistically, you are able to strike first, be able to get a stop, stretch it to 10, maybe stretch it to 14, and before you know it, like in the first quarter, we're like, hang on a second, like, Florida State may not be able to just sit back there and pound the rock to win this game. Like, they might actually have to answer some scores through the air here, kind of try to find a way to get back into this game a little bit quicker. If that's the case, and you try to get DJU a little bit more involved in this game, if you're Georgia Tech, I'm not telling you win the football game, but I think that's maybe the path to Georgia Tech making this thing interesting. Now, even with all that being said, I still believe that the physicality of Florida State, both offensively and defensively, is going to be too much for Georgia Tech. I think it's fine if you don't trust DJU going into this thing, but again, he's not going to be the centerpiece of Florida State's offense. Like, even in this first game, it's going to be a lot of Roydell Williams. It's going to be a lot of Keziah Holmes, all those names I just mentioned. And then when they creep up, play action, over the top, Malik Benson, touchdown. That's going to be the formula. That's going to be the rhythm. So I think the perfect stat line if you're DJU is like, all right, let's go be like 12 for 22, 196 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like, that could be the kind of day he has, and it could be more than good enough to win the football game. Haynes King has to take care of the football for Georgia Tech. He threw 16 picks a year ago. This has been something that has followed Haynes King since he was at A&M. And it's not every game, but when it rains, it pours with him. He had multiple games last year of multiple interceptions. Shaheem Brown, I think, could be the differentiator for this defense for Florida State. He's a safety for them, had a phenomenal camp for the Noles. His ability to play the run and the pass is going to be, I think, nightmarish for Georgia Tech's offense, rather. Too much team speed for Georgia Tech. I really like Florida State to win the game, but here's where it gets interesting. The question we're all asking, does Florida State cover? Because 11.5, kind of a lot of points for a team that maybe the college football public doesn't know a ton about right now. Haynes King could hurt you. Like, is it good Haynes or bad Haynes? We don't know. They got some offensive weapons. Is the defense improved? All those question marks are fair. Here's what I'll say. This game, to me, just screams backdoor cover for Florida State. Some of it's a feeling. Some of it's on the ground game. I think Florida State will punch one in to really put things on ice a little bit later in the game. I got Florida State winning. I got Florida State covering. Again, backdoor. I have the final score as 27-13 for the Noles. Start undefeated in the college football season. Start undefeated in ACC play. And start undefeated on international soil in 2024. So let me know your game pick as well in the comment section on the YouTube channel, in the live chat. Who you got winning, and maybe as importantly, if not more importantly, who do you have on the side when it comes to the spread? Again, Florida State right now, minus 11.5. All right, long show today. Long show, but that's what happens when we got the top 25 and we got the week 0 game of the week to break down in Ireland. A lot to unpack. We're glad to have y'all here. Quick ad read for y'all. The Hard Count is brought to y'all by our friends over at Roback. Now, y'all that watch this show and are following me on the social channels, you know how much I love Roback. Wear them all the time for a reason, especially on those Friday Q&As. Best polos on the market. I think best hoodies on the market. Best T-shirts on the market. Like, they do a phenomenal job keeping us right in all climates. We're moving out of summer into kind of that more crisp fall weather for some of y'all. I know some of y'all in the Southeast are like, what are you talking about? No, we're not. Okay, I hear you. But even with that being said, as you move into the fall months eventually, Roback's going to have you covered. Whether it be a hot game day, you got a polo to go with, whether you need a little hoodie action for a more crisp fall weather game day, they got you covered. Roback also has everyday shorts that are perfect pairing. Comfortable, elastic waistband, great fabric that is made to stretch. Also, ton of other products. I mentioned the T-shirts. They're continuing to refine that. Bathing suits, if you're soaking in the end of the warm weather, Roback got you covered. Also, proudly leading the NIL charge, having signed partnerships with college stars Jalen Milroe, Cade Klubnik, among others. They're becoming the go-to brand for college athletes. So, use code JD on Roback.com for a generous 20% off for all new customers through the end of this week. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. That's 20% off all performance polos, shorts, shirts, and more with code JD. All right, college football season is here. Make sure you're locked in. We're back on the air tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, talking maybe some crazy things that you think is going to happen during week 1 of the college football season. Again, follow me on the socials at JD Pickell, Twitter and Instagram to stay up with everything we're doing here on this show. Golly, feels good to be back. Feels good to be back. For Nick Brake producing the show, myself, JD Pickell, we love y'all. We appreciate y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling, and we will see y'all next time.